The National Education, Health and Allied Workers Union has served the South African Revenue Services, SARS, with a notice to strike. This comes after having reached a deadlock to conclude a wage agreement for the bargaining cycle of 2022 to 2023, after the intransigent employer tabled a 0% offer, or an offer far below what they had presented. And of course, the word intransigent comes from the union. Let's take a listen to what they have to say.
Not only vindictive, but constitute her strategy to weaken her case, to weaken the case against her by eliminating those potentially would provide evidence and willing to be witnesses against her, such as our office bearers. Simply put, the VC is interfering with all potential elements of her case so as to ensure that by the time of the disciplinary processes, there will be no one available to testify against them. Unfortunately, the union shall not fold its arms and watch the VC and the UNISA management running the institution as a banana university or as the Aspaza shop. Already, we had sought legal advice from our lawyers, and currently we are in the process of filing court papers today, the 17th May 2022, to declare such actions unlawful and ought to be set aside by a court of law. While on the other hand, busy at the national level consolidating a program to intensify the mobilization on the ground. We therefore call the UNISA Council to provide the leadership to ensure stability in the institution and that the impasse is amicably resolved to enable the smooth running of the academic and support institutional programs. Failing which, the union shall take the situation of UNISA straight to the door of the Minister of Higher Education and Training, Science and Technology for solution and action. That's where our statement ends. we are ready to take questions.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, I will hand over to you guys for questions based on the statement that has just been read out by the General Secretary.
Thank you very much. My name is Pelane Pakhari. I'm from Newsroom Africa. Quite a comprehensive statement I see, in particular relation to the latter part of it and your demands. But let's start on the kind of shape that you want this protector strike to take. When you say you're going to go on a full-blown strike, please paint a picture as to what can people expect when they walk into a SARS branch. What kind of services do you foresee being halted? And are you the sole membership in SARS? Do you foresee causing the kind of upset that you're looking to cause to SARS and forcing them back to the bargaining table? And on the UNISA matter in itself, no, let's leave it. Thanks. I think I'm
okay.
I wonder.
Is covered. I've also got just communication here from Brian Sokutu, Citizen newspaper. They've just asked two questions as to how big is the NEHAWU membership at SARS. That's the first one. The second one states that it appears SARS is to be brought to a standstill indefinitely. What is the impact to tax collection and the economy in broad? That's from Brian Sokutu from the Citizen newspaper. I've got another one from Anita from the Mail and Guardian. She's just sent in some few. The first one is why did the negotiations for the wage agreement 2022-2023 fail? What does NEHAWU think is the reason for SARS not increasing workers' wages? That's the first one. Two, what would a strike at SARS mean for the public? 3, why did NEHAWU decide to join the strike? 4, what are some of the points NEHAWU will address during the strike? 5, what will NEHAWU do if it receives a pushback from SARS? And the last one, can NEHAWU please justify the 12% increase? What is it based on? And do you think it's adequate? And also, how many workers of NEHAWU are going to join the strike? Those are the questions from Anita from the Mail and Guidance. Thanks, Chair.
We will share the responses with the leadership here. I will just take one. President will take the impact and other issues that we feel comfortable to respond to President and the DGS as well on the specific question on membership, but the rest of the leadership also will take a question that they will want. I would just want to respond to the shape. A full-blown strike is nothing else but to come to a standstill. We will not expect any service to be pursued. We will render the system unworkable. So it means that there will be a huge impact. Because there will be no revenue collection, there will be no day-to-day activities that are to be pursued. And we want to assure you that working, because as now we are working with the union there that we work together called PSA, we are together in this strike, so we'll make sure that there is no service rendered to anyone. And it's a pity that it will affect the communities, but it's a situation that is not accepted and not tolerable. And President, you can take your questions.
No, thanks, Nopal, and thanks to Comrade Laz. The GSF already said the shape that we have said in our statement. We will start with the lunch hour picket as a build-up, culminating in March on the 25th. But from there, we will be continuing with demonstrations and ensuring that all the workplaces of SARS are not accessible by public and anyone else, because the people who work there will be on strike. And the strike will take for as long as we're at a point where we will go back to the table to have a meaningful engagement with the management of SARS. What are we going to do or are we envisaging them going back to the table? Of course, this is not the first time that we have an industrial action that is as a result of a deadlock or a collapse of negotiations. And every time this impasse is resolved by parties going back to the table, because that is where the mutual agreements are signed. We don't know what pushback SARS can do when they don't have the workforce in the workplace. We do think that their action of not wanting to negotiate, because bringing to the table nothing is as good as refusing to negotiate. You cannot expect people to wake up in the morning, take a bath and put on clothes and go to the table only to be told and to say we have 0% to give you. That's actually not negotiating. So we will take the case as when they come in terms of the manner in which SARS could employ what you call a pushback. All we know is that this is a protected strike. That's why we have applied for it. That's why if you should notice, it is in terms of the law. We don't expect any other. How big is the membership? NEHAWU is at 45% in SARS. So in fact, we are the largest union by far in SARS as things stands now. What is the impact of the strike to the economy? and the public. Of course, workers do not consider a strike as a picnic or as a festival. It is always a painful part for them, not only because they lose, but also because the public that they serve, they do suffer the consequence of the strike. But it is not the workers that must take the responsibility only for the impact the strike is going to have on the economy and on the public. It is also those who provoke the workers to be left with no other choice but indeed to go and seek for a living on the street over and above the fact that they're selling the labor without any payment and the fact that the employer is refusing to negotiate. But it will definitely have the impact on the lack of services that the public expect from the employees of SARS. And should the strike take longer than we would have hoped, obviously the progress we have made and the improvement we have registered in the past financial year of collecting revenue is going to be impacted, and that will also have an impact on the economy going forward. But we think and hope that the public will understand that not only workers are responsible for such unfortunate circumstances. We asked why did the negotiations fail. In our view, from where we stand, they never even started, despite the fact that we tried to start last year to present our demands. The fact that there was not even a 0.1% offered by the employer, there was never a negotiations. So we deadlocked at the point where the employer is refusing, despite what we have just reported, that for a record 25 years, we have registered an improvement in terms of the revenue collections. It was not enough for the employer to even consider that the workers, they deserve something. So that's where the negotiations fails. And we will not know. We are asked again by, I think it's Mail and Garden, they've got so many questions, so they will pardon us if we forget some. They may have to come back. We just think that SARS is at the core under Treasury of the austerity measures being implemented by South African government now. We cannot think of any other reason other than that austerization of South African state about everything else, particularly to those people who, or on whose backs the economy of this country has been built, the wealth of this country has been built. The government, and in this case led by Treasury and specifically now in this case SARS, they seek to take every little that workers have away from them in order to accumulate profit for the business and to appease the rating agencies. Those are the reasons we can think of, because nothing that was presented to us that makes sense if you consider the economic challenges that workers are faced now, as we will come to it now as we respond to other questions, but also the improvement we have made in revenue collection by the very same staff of SARS. You will know that SARS is one of the state entities that we have in South Africa that is practicing the practice of government of freezing wages to all public servants, all entities, and also what they call a demand for wage moderation. So that's what we think is their reason. Why did NEHAWU decide to join the strike? We are not joining in a strike. We have declared a dispute. We have served the notice to go on strike. We have applied where we're supposed to picket. So we are on a strike. We are not joining a strike. Yes, it is a fact that we are not the only union. I think that question was also asked. That is going on the strike, because in the bargaining forum, we are not the only labor union there. And all the labor unions that are found in SARS have themselves declared a strike, and we're commencing the strike on the same day. It is important also to register at this point that for the first time in a long time, all the workers, all the unions are going to be embarking on this strike simultaneously together in all the same points, because at this point in time, it is important to understand that the challenge that workers are faced are the same irrespective of the union they belong to. And the workers have come to that realization that it is a class matter, the class contradictions are heightening, And as a result, the class that is oppressed needs to come together. In this case, both the NEHAWU and the rest of the unions are going to be in the same boat in the strike. And it is also that fact that it is our view that the impact of the strike is going to be felt, and it will be interesting to see where the pushback is going to come from. What are we basing our demands on? Why do we think the 12% is justified? I've said that firstly we were basing the CPI X on the projected CPI for October 2021, which was at 5%. I'm sure you know now that it is more than that as we speak. And I'm sure you know what the CPI or the inflation does to a cost of living adjustment to any employee. It's a question of making sure that that which I was affording yesterday with my take home, I must continue to afford it. Because anything less than the inflation or the CPI is actually amount to a salary decrease, because it doesn't take me to be able to continue to afford the things that I was able to afford the previous financial year. And anything above that, or anything beyond the percentage of the inflation or the CPI, it's actually what we call a real salary increase. And in this case, you must go into the increases of all the basic needs that the South Africans need, in particular the workers, in order to survive. You will know that NERSA has just granted ESCOM an over 13% increase on the electricity. Already, that alone is beyond or is above the 12% that SARS workers are demanding. These SARS workers must still go and find a 13% on electricity hike to pay. I'm sure you know that we're at about 15% on transportation, and today we've just been told that in fact petrol is likely to go up by 3 rand or so. So in other words, about 35% that workers are using on a daily basis to go to work, to transport themselves to work, is going to go up again. That on its own is an inflation on its own. I don't want to go to the food inflation. On itself, there's a high food inflation that we're facing now. So 12% is actually doesn't come anywhere near to making sure that the cost of living of these workers are actually improved. We're just conservatively looking at the CPI as projected by Treasury, as they normally do every year. But the reality is that the inflation of an ordinary South African worker, in this case, is far, far more than what the workers are demanding. So that's what we're justifying our demands on. No problem. Let me leave here. I don't know what is left.
Oh, okay. Maybe just I think the question of what other points will be addressed during the strike. The demands as listed here is what is at the core of the action. But as the President was explaining, at the back of all this impasse is an austerity program that is also aimed at attacking collective bargaining. So for SARS to do all what they are doing is simply taking forward the program of attacking and collapsing collective bargaining institutions in the country. So we're not naive. We're not just looking at these demands, but we are also saying that respect collective bargaining, because SARS is doing exactly what government has been doing. You know that we've just started the negotiations in the public service. We're still dealing with that issue of what happened 2 years ago, but exactly SARS is implementing, and many other institutions. So we will be raising also those issues about respect the institution of collective bargaining. When we table demands, we expect you to respond. We expect you to engage meaningfully, because that's the system that was created by the constitution of this country,
and by the ILO conventions which were accepted by South Africa. So yes, the demands are sufficient, but we think the posture is informed by these issues that are linked to the rolling austerity program of government.
Any other questions or what around Power FM? Going. Newsroom? Going. All right.
No question about the big issue, Eunice.
No question on okay. Pelane ran away from the issue.
It's very controversial.
Ladies and gentlemen, that brings an end to our press briefing. We are going to issue out the statement. We'll clean the statement. We'll issue it out after the presser. You can call us if you want follow-ups on issues that might have been omitted and left out. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thanks for coming.
All right, NEHAWU giving a briefing there saying that they are going to go ahead and strike at SARS, the South African Revenue Services, if they don't meet their demands. They're looking for an increase in excess of 11%. SARS is currently offering 0%. NEHAWU is going to be joining the Public Service Association, which earlier announced that it's also set to strike against the Revenue Service.